There's a topic that fascinates me, which we haven't covered in any great detail in our series From Amateur to Expert Daily, and that is the idea of guiding heuristics. We've touched on it once or twice, but you can go into a great degree of depth and detail with this basic idea. It comes to us from practitioners like Edward de Bono, the inventor of lateral thinking, and a few other people who speak about guiding heuristics as a way of determining your behavior in certain scenarios. In the most simple terms, a guiding heuristic is this. It's a little piece of advice, a little element of wisdom, a little guiding principle, a flag post that you preload into your mind. And the idea is when a certain scenario arises, your flag points you in the right direction, your signpost. So a guiding heuristic basically takes the format, when this happens, I'm going to do that instead. The trick, of course, is that you have to load the guiding heuristic prior to the arrival of the scenario. In the scenario, in the heat of battle, as it were, chances are you're going to be very emotional, you're going to be invested in what's going on around you, and you won't be able to take that moment and zoom back and think logically. The great value of heuristics is that when you load them in advance, they are there for you when you need them most. So a guiding heuristic might take a form like this one. Let's take a simple example which I cover in Poverty Proof, 50 Ways to Train Your Brain for Wealth. When Black Friday rolls around, we're very tempted to look at the specials and go, oh, that's so cheap, pair of sneakers going practically free. Well, the fact is, even a very low price, if you were not intending to buy sneakers, represents a financial loss for you. Now, if you've preloaded the guiding heuristic, when this happens, I'm going to do that instead, you might not fall for that trick. You might say, I didn't plan to buy a pair of sneakers, and therefore that represents a financial loss for me. That guiding heuristic could be strong enough to help you to see through the emotion of the moment, through the temptation, and to make a good decision. How do we apply that in the world of work and expert positioning? Well, the question I'd like you to ask yourself today is, what is your weakest point? We often talk about playing up our strongest attributes and using them to become a top-performing expert, a top name. But today, let's do something a little different. What is your weakest point? Does something repetitively and continually happen to you in meetings, in client negotiations, in speeches? What's the thing that goes wrong all the time? Now, what could you do to fix that? Is there a better way forward? And the key to this one is to say, what's the trigger event? What comes just before the disaster or just before the weak point? When you see that trigger, what guiding heuristic could you call upon in order to behave differently? So let's just recap that. What's your weakest moment? What comes before the weakest moment? What could you tell yourself and retrieve at that point in time that would cause you to behave differently? Preload clever guiding heuristics and you can change your trajectory. In Poverty Proof, I talk about changing your wealth trajectory by using clever preloaded heuristics. You can do this with anything, provided you're aware of the principle.